In this video, we're going to start to put together an application using React that we use our GraphQL services to achieve authentication and authorization. So in light of this, what I've done, I've created a blank React application using the React scripts, and I've just removed some boilerplate code from app.js and I just placed this h1 tag in here. So this is where we're going to start from. And what we'll do next is install the dependencies that we will require for this project to work. So I'm going to type in npm I and install the required dependencies, which is going to be Apollo Boost, React Apollo, GraphQL, and React Router DOM. Once the installation is completed, I'm going to create the files that I will require in order for my application to work. So I'm going to add a file called active session.js, and these are going to be just components that we will go and develop in the upcoming videos. Then we will have a component for logging in, then we will have a component that will be used to log out people, then we will also create a navigation component, a profile component, and last but not least, a register component. So the application is going to be very simple. It will allow us to either log in via a user or register a new user. Once they logged in, they will be able to see the profile page and they can log out from that profile. So the very first thing that we will set up is the Apollo client itself, right? So we'll need the Apollo client and the Apollo provider to work. And we've seen this in a previous video, but the difference here is going to be that we don't want to access the client in a single component, but instead we want to access the Apollo client throughout the application. So in light of this, what we'll need to do is wrap this app root component with the Apollo provider. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's first of all bring in the dependencies of Apollo client from Apollo Boost and also import the Apollo provider from React Apollo. So the reason why we use Apollo Boost here is because it's just an easier way to get started with Apollo implementations in React. And let's create a client variable. We're going to instantiate the Apollo client and we're going to pass in some options. And for now, the only option that we'll pass in is the GraphQL endpoint, which we're running on port 3000. So that's port 3000 on localhost/GraphQL. And that's pretty much it. And what we will do, we'll take the Apollo provider, pass in the client, and wrap this around the app root component. So by doing this, everywhere inside the app, we will have access to the client itself, so we can run GraphQL queries with ease. So the next thing that we'll put together is the navigation and the routing. So let's start with opening up navigation.js, and I'm going to import React in here. So this is a navigation component that we'll put together, and we do export default navigation. I'm just going to call this navigation here. So constant navigation is equal to a function which is going to then return something. And as you can see here, I'm creating what React calls a functional component. So this video course is not about the basics of React, so we're not going to go into an awful lot of discussion regards to React itself, but functional components are essentially just JavaScript functions. So they take an optional input, which is going to be the properties, which we'll use later, and then class components are written in a slightly different way, and in this course we will write a few of those as well, but those class components essentially offer us more features, and of course with these more features comes some extra things that we can do in React. So what you see here, this navigation, is what React refers to as a functional component. Okay, so I'm just going to write some boilerplate code here because I want to have two components here really. I want to get a navigation when someone is not authorized and then return something, and I also want to get another navigation, but this time when someone is authorized. And we're going to build this up as we progress in the course. So now navigation no auth is going to be a simple list, and let's add two items to the navigation, a login, and let's also add a register, right? So if someone is not logged in, then we want to give them the option of login and register as well. We'll write the code later for navigation with auth, and this navigation, which is the actual component that we export, should return the navigation no auth component for now. Okay, so that's done. We're going to come back to this file in just a second, but let's also visit app.js where we have this hello h1 element. And what I'm going to do here is implement the routing for the whole application. So I'm going to import a few things. I'm going to import the browser router, and I'm going to call that as router, and I'm also going to get a route from what we've installed, which is the React router DOM. And what this allows me to do is to create a routing in here. So let's say I'm going to add the router element, and after that let's create a fragment, or we could just create a div element as well, that doesn't matter. And let's include the navigation that we created in here, and notice that Visual Studio Code automatically imports the navigation component for me. And I'm going to put a horizontal ruler there, and I'm going to specify the paths. The first one is going to be a route for/login, and when I'm at the login I will want to load a component, and that component is going to be the login component, but we're going to write that later on. And let's copy this, and if someone goes to register, then I want to load the register component. Okay, and that's pretty much it for this part. Going back to navigation, we need to make sure that the navigation actually knows which components to load, right? So we specified the route path here for login, but we need to link this login so that the actual login component is loaded. So what I'm going to do is import link from React router DOM, and this is nothing special that I'm doing so far, right? This is all basic React routing stuff. So when someone clicks login, this should go to /login, and then for register we're going to say link to /register, and that's it. So that's going to be our basic navigation for now. So let me also create the register and login components. Let's start with register first. I'm just going to add some very basic code for now. So I'm going to say import React from React and export, actually let's do const register page. So this is going to be yet another functional component here, and using the arrow function here, this is going to just return a div and an h2 element that says register. And then let's export default register page. And I'm just going to copy this, open login, and just rewrite register page to say login page. So instead of the register page, this is the login page, and this should now say login. So now in app.js, I can load the login page component and the register page component, both of which are automatically imported for me. I just noticed the quick typing mistake that I've done a few times already. So it's Apollo provider in here, and of course that's the name of the component as well. So let's try to test this now. Port 8080 space npm start. I'm doing this because I have something already running on port 3000, which is the GraphQL instance. If you've done everything correctly, we should have a browser window open, and that should load the application for us. You can ignore this warning. So it says that navigation with auth is assigned, but it's never used. So we assigned a variable of value, but we're never using it. So that's fine. We're going to take care of that later. So I tried to split up my screen so that you can actually see both the browser and the code editor. So here's our two navigation items, login and register. Clicking on login loads the login component. Clicking on register loads the register component. All right, so far so good. So in the next video, we'll take a look at how to add a registration form to our application.